DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
Do you want to know what's happening in the Finger Lakes? We do too. We're going in depth with decision makers in the heart of upstate New York to get the answers you need. From the team of FingerLakes1.com, this is Inside the FLX.
All right, welcome back to Inside the FLX. It is time for our monthly chat with Cayuga County Sheriff Brian Schenck. Sheriff, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks, Josh. It's good to be here. Thank you.
So last month, one of the bigger topics that we talked about was open positions, potential budget issues for the county. The legislature has met a couple times since then. So if you can, give us a little update on where we stand right now.
Sure. We talked about the fact that we've got some budget challenges here in Cayuga County, a lot of pressure on our budget, not only this year, but going into next year. For a number of reasons, but I had brought to the public's attention that the legislature was looking potentially to not fill 2 budgeted positions that I was seeking to fill last month. So I did put that information out. I think it's important for the public to understand where we're at with those types of things. And, you know, I've always made the argument that public safety should really be a priority for any municipality. And in our particular situation in here in Cayuga County, you know, I've stated that I think it's really important that as we deal with some of these budget pressures, that our legislature look at our entire budget and cut public safety resources last, you know, after everything else has been looked at. So when the legislature, some of the members were looking at cutting funding for my budget first, that being 2 budgeted positions, did bring that to the public. And I am happy to say last Tuesday night, the full legislature did meet. They did approve filling my 2 budgeted positions that I was seeking to fill by a vote of 7-4. There were 4 legislators that did not want to fill those before taking a look at other areas of the budget where maybe we can make some cuts. But I am aware that we will have to really work hard moving into 2025 here at the sheriff's office and every county department, looking at ways to cut spending. It's going to be difficult. Any spending cuts that we make in public safety certainly will have an impact, but we will be doing our due diligence to make sure that we're doing our best to be fiscally responsible moving into next year.
I was going to ask as a follow-up to that, how does your leadership team and you approach that? Like, how do you sort of approach if cuts are eventually necessary, and say it's a 2, 3, 4, 5, 10% cut that ends up having to happen? How do you go through the sort of laundry list of services law enforcement ultimately provides and figure out where you can cut? Like, how does that prioritization work just from an internal brainstorming standpoint?
For us, it's going to be really difficult. We're going to have to go through every line item and see if there's something that, you know, maybe we can put that off for a year, or, you know, if there's something that we absolutely can get by without purchasing. I'll be looking closely at vehicles. Vehicles are expensive, but the challenge with that is if maybe you put that off a year, maybe we need some additional, but vehicles next year, and that makes that budget even that much more challenging. But what's really difficult is we don't have a lot of extra, a lot of places that we can cut. There just aren't, and any cuts we make will impact services. Another thing that concerns me is if we have to make a significant cut to our budget, then that you have to look at personnel. We just don't have areas where we can make significant cuts without losing personnel, and we have mandated positions in the jail that we can't cut. And I certainly don't want to make any cuts to our road patrol division. I feel that we're just kind of working with a bare bones road patrol crew right now. So it's going to be very challenging. We'll be looking at every line. We will, as you mentioned, our leadership team, this will be a team effort within our administration to look at every area where we can cut. But, there will be no easy cuts for sure. And unfortunately, it's going to impact, the services that we provide to the public.
The number one question we got after our last interview here at Finger Lakes One was, what is fully staffed for you guys? So what is that number, if there is a number that from a staffing standpoint, you feel comfortable with the sheriff's office being at for road patrol, and then even also perhaps the jail, which I know is its own kind of separate division?
Sure. So within the jail, we have 96 budgeted positions currently. That really is a bare bones minimum for us in the jail. We can't cut there. Road patrol division, we have approximately 35 total members within our road patrol division. That includes supervisors, that includes line staff that are on the road, that includes our criminal investigators, our identification officers that handle pistol permits, evidence, and background checks within our agency. So approximately 35 on the road. And really, I really do not look forward to having to sit and look at the potential for cuts to staff. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen. And again, I'm going to, encourage the public to support me if the legislature's not looking at other areas first. If we do our due diligence from a countywide budget perspective and find that there's no choice but to cut from our public safety budget, then I will do my part to do that. But I don't think that should be a place that we go to first to cut. So I don't have extra staff out there on the road or in the jail, and it'll be very, very difficult if it comes to that. But I'm hopeful. I don't think that we need to resort to that. I think that would be an absolute last resort, or should be. And thankfully, I believe, we have a small majority, but I believe a small majority of the legislature agrees with my assessment that public safety is our top priority and should be.
Are you concerned at all about the impact that could potentially have on recruiting and retention longer term when you start to game that out a little bit beyond just one immediate year for a budget cycle?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. That would be very concerning. There are many agencies in the central New York area that are looking to hire staff. And I don't want to give anyone that might be interested in coming in to our direction for employment to look at other areas because they're not sure, if there's uncertainty with our positions. But, I'm confident at the end of the day, I think the legislative majority, the small majority we have will make a statement when it comes to the budget that, we want to make sure our positions are filled, that public safety is a priority, and that we're not going to make cuts to this important area.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the work that your team has been doing. You're seeing a little bit of a spike here over the last 30 or so days in DWI arrests. Talk to us a little bit about that. What do you attribute that to?
I'm not real sure what the cause of that is, but it's very concerning. We've made 8 DWI arrests so far in the month of July, and for our sheriff's office, typically, 3 or 4 DWI arrests a month are what we see on average. Maybe 5 might be a busy month for us, but we've already seen 8 arrests, and thankfully we are nearing the end of the month. But that's very concerning to me that we saw such a spike this summer. And I've been on a lot of very serious accidents that have involved an operator that's operating under the influence of drugs or alcohol. And I was just thinking the other day as I drive some of our roads here in Cayuga County, you see those cross markers from time to time on the side of the road where, a family's put up a marker to kind of memorialize where they've lost a loved one. And, I see those markers in our county, and some of those are on scenes or locations where I responded to those. And it was a senseless death that was caused by, a person driving while intoxicated. And, I think people need to do a much better job of thinking about the potential consequences. If you're going to have a drink, if you're using a substance, line up a ride. It only takes a second. Line up that ride. Don't make that decision to drive drunk, because not only could it cost you an arrest and a lot of money and your freedom if you're incarcerated, think of the consequences if you have to live with the fact that you hurt or killed somebody along the way. So, when I see that spike in those types of cases, all the arrests we've made, I think it's important to keep reminding people to let's make better decisions. Let's not throw your life away or ruin somebody else's because of your poor decision.
Yeah, and kind of in the same lane, I'm curious. Earlier this month, we saw headlines about a couple illegal cannabis retail operations in Cayuga County get shut down. We've heard frustration from law enforcement agencies across the state that The state hasn't really empowered local law enforcement to be able to take these places on more quickly, more effectively. It seems as though there's at least been a bit of a temperature shift on that, where the state is more interested now in empowering organizations like yours to deal with some of these things. How do you see that challenge, especially as it relates to driving high or some of the other things that are going on there?
Well, it's certainly not helping. I mean, it's putting that out there. It's so easy for people to get that from unlicensed dispensaries. And what bothers me most about these shops that are selling without a license here locally is many of them are marketing and selling to underage kids. That's why Chief Slayton and I, with the Auburn Police Department, really started aggressively working on determining which shops here in Cayuga County were selling without a license, who was selling to kids. And then we reached out to the Office of Cannabis Management here, the state office. They did come out and assist us in shutting down 5 of those shops. But it certainly doesn't help that there's so many of them in our community. I think that, people are making, unfortunately, poor decisions to access those unlicensed shops. And again, what really drives me crazy is our young kids that can just walk into some of them and purchase, cannabis products, without being stopped. It's just, we can't allow that to happen in our community.
Yeah, last week we were talking with Auburn Mayor Jimmy Giannatino, and he said that he had received a tip about one of them. I believe he said back in February. The reaction to that was pretty resoundingly, "Oh my God, that is such a long amount of time between the first tip to officials, law enforcement, et cetera, to point of actually shutting them down." Is that a reflection of the steps that you guys have to take working with the state to be able to get to that point of shutting down a place like that?
So it did take some time for us to, we did some of our own local investigating here to determine and confirm that they were in fact selling cannabis without a license and that they were in fact selling to minors. So that took some time for us to put that together. We then did reach out to the state. Obviously, that takes some time to put all of that together and come up with a time that we can actually shut those shops down and get the state involved. But one of the biggest challenges I find with all of these shops that are selling illegally is we just don't have the extra staff to devote to chasing these shops, chasing these people that are selling illegally. And, I talk about the fact that we're at a bare bones crew out there on the road, and now all of a sudden, the way the state rolled this out, it just wasn't done appropriately. And, it encouraged a lot of illicit selling of cannabis in our neighborhoods. And, that's going on in your entire listening area and across the state. But local law enforcement, we don't have the extra resources to deal with this now. And, I've already heard at least one of the shops that we shut down here not that long ago is up and operating again. So we've got to, do this all over again. So there's got to be stiffer penalties. I think the state's got to make more resources available to address this issue because we just don't have the manpower and time to deal with it.
A follow up on that, if I could. When because I've seen this play out a few times now across our whole Finger Lakes and Central New York region, where a place will get shut down and then a few weeks later, or maybe a month or two later, we'll see on Facebook or we'll hear from readers or listeners that it's back up and running again. What is that a reflection of? Is that a reflection of the process that the state then puts that business through? I would assume it has nothing to do with you guys. It's sort of out of your hands at that point once you've done the police work, so to speak. What's happening there? What's at play?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is that the state's taking more of a civil approach to shutting these places down, fines and penalties and at times going after the landlords. I think these people need to be in jail, especially if you want to open a shop right back up and start doing this. And, it's a joke to you and you're basically laughing at the state and the system. I think these individuals need to be put in jail. That's my opinion. We just need to have stricter penalties. Obviously, the civil route for some is not, they don't care. And quite frankly, I think for some of these folks, the amount of money that they're probably making, they're prepared to pay those civil fines and I'm guessing they're probably still coming out ahead. So I think we got to make it a little bit more difficult for these individuals to operate, to do it profitably. And maybe a little bit of jail time would help them get the message too that, can't be selling this without a license.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about an app that you guys rolled out think earlier this month, or maybe it was in June. It's a communication tool, but talk to us a little bit about Safer Watch.
Sure. We did partner with Safer Watch here in Cayuga County. I love this app. I love how it operates. We accomplished two goals with it, really. Our county is utilizing the app to roll out information relative to emergencies, road closures, building closures. We did use it with the closing of our office building. So I worked very closely with our IT director, Tom Bunn, to partner with Safer Watch so that we could use it as a tool to let our community know what's going on here locally, both at the county level and from a emergency standpoint. But I also love the fact that we can use this as an app to gather tips from the public or feedback from the public. So if you download the app, you can provide tips to us anonymously or with your information that can help us with our law enforcement efforts. And the primary reason that I wanted to develop the use of this app was to expand our threat assessment work that we're doing here in the county. So behavioral threat assessment, if somebody may be presenting in our community that could potentially be taking that path to perpetuating violence, we want to try to intervene, and we need the public's help when it comes to that. We need tips. If the community is seeing something from an individual that's concerning, whether it's some young student that's going to school or somebody in our community that might be posting on social media or making threats or just doing something that clearly needs to be dealt with, it provides a platform for the community to both anonymously and otherwise let us know about that behavior so that we can intervene before somebody acts upon their desire to commit violence in our community. So we're going to continue to expand upon that and educate our community about how that can be used in that way. But I'm really excited to have this tool out there. We actually already solved a criminal case with it after just rolling it out a few weeks ago. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Is that sort of the way, like we've heard law enforcement agencies talk about, that's sort of the way they've used Facebook, is to sort of be a facilitator of communication. Does this help a little bit in terms of cutting a platform out of the equation and giving you guys direct access to the community and the community direct access to you guys?
It does. I think it's easier for somebody to communicate with us this way, and it also allows someone to send a tip anonymously. We get a lot of anonymous tips. A lot of individuals are reluctant to give their information. So if they send a tip via social media, they have to attach their social media name to it. So this way they can do it anonymously and really easy to use. And what I like about this is it's just a quick click on the app on your phone, and you can receive information from us, and you can also, get information from us. So really great tool for us.
Yeah. Road Patrol Deputy exam deadline coming up here in about 2 or 2.5 weeks or so. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. We're going to be giving our entry-level test for the Road Patrol Division here in Cayuga County on September 28th. And multiple agencies throughout New York are giving the test the same day. So I know many agencies in your listening area are also giving their entry-level exam. Our deadline to register here in Cayuga County is August 14th, and you can do that by visiting our civil service human resources site on our website, CayugaCounty.us. But I would encourage, I always like to give this tip to anyone that's taking our exam or anyone else's exam, make sure you cross-file with multiple agencies. And you have to do that. You have to actually reach out to each county or police department and make sure that you file paperwork to cross-file. So if you take the test here in Cayuga County, you can cross-file with another county, and it opens up the doors to a lot of opportunities. And, some people may wonder why I'm giving that plug. Like, I just want to bring people our way. But I think it's important for, somebody looking for a job to open up that door to a lot of different opportunities. And it's easy to cross-file. So make sure you do that. Just a little tip if you've never taken one of those exams, but you're really interested in a career in law enforcement, to do that.
You open the door. So I'm going to follow up and I'm going to ask you about it. You're telling me that in 2024, when you take the test, it doesn't automatically go to or can be applied to all law enforcement agencies that have openings or would otherwise be considered?
It does not. So if you register for our exam and you take our exam, you are on a list for our sheriff's office, and that's it. You're not on a list for other communities. So you have to make sure that you proactively cross-file with other agencies. And it's important to do that, to open up the the doors for those opportunities. But yeah, most agencies that I am familiar with are giving the exam on September 28th because I think most all of us are having a difficult time recruiting. But it's a great career. It's an awesome career path. I still love what I do every day, and I would highly encourage anyone with interest to take the exam and give it a shot.
Speaking of some of the things you guys are doing and working on, we started out today talking about the staffing challenges and some of the things associated with what it would look like if you're operating with, say, a few less deputies down the road. The summer season is time for parades, community events, festivals, fireworks, you name it, all that kind of stuff. You guys are at most, if not all of those, not just taking in the sights and sounds, but actually working. How much of a challenge would the summer season be if you were all of a sudden down 2, 3, 4, 5 deputies?
Certainly would make it more challenging if we're a really limited number of road patrol staff when it comes to the summer. It's our busiest month, and a lot of these events require a lot of planning in advance. We work with the organizers and our partners in the fire and EMS service and emergency management here in Cayuga County. Then it comes time for the events where oftentimes, we've had events where half of our road patrol division is actually engaged in the actual event, like our fireworks at Emerson Park on July 4th. That's an all hands on deck. And so we're still trying to maintain road coverage and provide safety services and traffic services. So, we definitely need as many positions filled as possible during the summer months because there are a lot of events. But we live in a really awesome community when it comes to the Finger Lakes and tourism, and a lot of great things going on in the summertime. And I know we're not the only agency that's very busy in the summer, making sure that these types of events go off without a hitch. And that's what we do. So I give kudos to our staff and our EMS providers and emergency management providers that provide these services, not just in the summer, really throughout the year, but the summer's the busiest time with so many events that we're engaged in.
You mentioned the planning piece of this. How has that evolved over the last 5 to 10 years? I would imagine planning for something like this looks a lot different than maybe it did in 2019 or 2015 from a law enforcement perspective.
For the most part, there's a lot of similarities. When I think back to events that we've handled for a long, long time, like our large fireworks displays that we have here, or the Great Race, the Auburn Great Race. A lot of the planning is the same, but we do bring more partners to the table now to make sure that more people are engaged, and we have changed and evolved a little bit when it comes to that. But what I've been trying to do recently is make sure that some of the smaller events that individuals are planning, to make sure that they reach out to us and include us in the planning, because we've had times when somebody will reach out and say, hey, we're looking for some law enforcement coverage, in a couple of weeks for this particular event, and we haven't been part of the planning at all. So if somebody reaches out early when they're planning, we can help with traffic issues in advance or determine exactly how many resources we need and actually make the planning go a lot smoother. But I like it when we have the ability to help early on in the planning process. It makes our job easier, and I think it makes for a much safer event.
Absolutely. Sheriff, thanks so much for the time this morning. We'll be talking to you in August.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching and listening to this episode of Inside the FLX. Check the show notes for links to everything we discussed today. And remember, new episodes of the show drop every Monday on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the iHeartRadio app. If you have a question or a suggestion for a future episode, email news@fingerlakes1.com and download the fingerlakes1.com app for the latest breaking news. For the entire team here, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.